Hey, I'm David, and welcome to In the Growth Space. I'm so glad that you've joined me for this episode. You know, it's really so great to be with you once again, and also to learn from leaders who've gone on their own growth journey. And today, I am talking with a CEO of a wealth management company that has over $2 billion in assets managed. That's $2 billion with a B, $2 billion in assets managed. No small feat. And not only does he have a great story, but one of the things that really attracted me to have Reagan Wagner on the show today is that he's in a family business and works with his father. And if you know my story, I did the same thing early in my career. And I built and I sold an insurance agency with my dad. So I have a lot in common with Reagan, and it's really a great conversation. And we talk about a number of things. We talk about working in a family business. We talk about the 5 pillars of his business that his dad created. Those are really great, and it's really great to be able to have pillars or foundations, fundamentals, sometimes I call them. And there's really an interesting part of our conversation about common themes of high net worth individuals. It's really fascinating, and I know that you're going to really enjoy that. And this is a great conversation to learn from. But before we get into that, let me just take a quick moment to personally invite you to the Inner Circle Summit that's coming up really quickly. It's coming up next week as this airs. So Tuesday, December the 13th is the day of the Inner Circle Summit. And if we still have seats left, you don't want to miss being in the energy of this room this year. You know, we have an international group of facilitators to take us through elements of being well so that we can lead well in 2023. You know, too often we don't take the time to sit and think and to really be in community. And so this is your opportunity to do that. You can go to www.davidmcglennen.com/Inner Circle Summit 2022 for more information. I'll make sure that that's in the show notes as well. And if you enter the word podcast into the coupon code box, you'll get our podcast listener pricing. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this conversation with Reagan Wagner right now. Well, hey, Reagan, it's so great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I always look forward to visiting with great people, and I appreciate you having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure. You know, I think where I'd love to start this conversation, you know, you're CEO of a wealth management firm, and your family business. You work with your father. I have an affinity for that because I worked with my father for nearly 20 years. I know we talked before we started recording. And I'm just kind of curious, how has that been for you? How's that relationship been with your father and working with him? And maybe how has it shaped your growth journey?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, I mean, you worked with your father for 20 years.
Yeah.
I just passed, let's see, officially 20 years as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's either it can present its own challenges, but to be honest, it's been the biggest blessing in my life has been to work with my father. I worked a corporate job for a long time, and before I made the move into finance, and I started looking for mentors. And you and I've talked about this. We share a mentor together.
Yeah.
And I was looking corporately, and I was looking internally, and all the people that I was looking at, I didn't take a real step back until I looked at my father and went, wow, all the people that I really want to be like, I have one. I have that guy. He's already in. So I've been able to work with not only one of my best friends, but really the mentor who kind of guides from the front and pushes from the back all at the right times. And really, it took my wife to kind of open my eyes up. We were married, engaged, and then we got married. And she said, well, you know, what do you really want to do?
Mm,
And
yeah,
because I was in corporate working all the time,
sure.
and I said, I kind of want the family. We want the family that he was able to do. And so
Yeah.
she kind of gave me that push, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's allowed us to focus on our big tenants. I mean, you and I've talked about our big tenants. We're
Yeah.
faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun, but it's really allowed us to dive in deep with those,
Yeah.
and build not only the business but the family that we've wanted,
Mm,
and it's all from getting the opportunity to work with my father.
that's so cool.
Um, there had to be a mutual level of respect, right? Because it's
Sure.
different. At
Yeah.
home, it's father son, right?
Right.
At the office, when we took on parallel roles as 50-50 owners together, after a couple of years, we were able to merge our companies together.
Mm,
And that, we both have to humble ourselves with our ego and figure
wow.
out that we need to work together. And that's, not only has that helped us together and build our relationship even closer,
Mm,
but it's just helped us in business too.
mm.
That whole servant heart.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's,
And how has that helped you just lead? I mean, because I know you said you brought the two companies together, and that dynamic. Then what has that brought then to the companies, the collective companies now?
yeah, yeah. So when he started the company in '81, it was primarily insurance and mutual funds.
Uh-huh.
And when I left the corporate job, I said, I don't want to sell insurance. And he said,
Hmm.
well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to start a wealth management company.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we don't really do that yet. So you're going to have to figure that out. So I started another company and took out some loans to get it started. The
Yeah.
struggles of an entrepreneur, right?
Sure. Sure.
And by the grace of God, that company grew, and it gave me
Mm,
an opportunity that, when we could merge, after a few years, I said, he and I got to talking. He needed some continuity planning. We also needed to move to the next level of company, and it
mhm.
made good sense for he and I to join together. So
That's great.
we merged those companies together, and what it did is it brought the experience of a tenured veteran in the field of sales and
Yeah.
insurance and that kind of thing, along with the fiduciary obligation, the fiduciary standard of wealth management and
Sure.
investment advisory. And it really made us whole,
Mm,
because now there weren't parts. Now,
yeah.
if a client or an advisor wanted to work with our organization, they could
Yeah.
kind of pick their path. So
Mm,
we could
that's
truly
cool.
do what was right, based on every situation, and we didn't have to go try to sell a widget or sell a company. It
Right.
was, we can be our customer's advocate, we can be an advisor's advocate.
Hmm.
So it really made us a whole company instead of just a part.
That's really amazing. I love that. And as you talk about being your client's advisor, and I'm assuming then that you take on the fiduciary role in the wealth management. And I guess how is that different then? And because I know there might be some people listening who don't understand that the fiduciary standard, and I'd love for you to
Yeah,
explain that.
yeah, that's a great, that's a great point. I take it for granted because I deal with it every day.
Sure, sure.
So in our industry, there's several ways to affiliate with a firm.
Mhm.
Some of those are commission based and what we call the representative side. And on the representative side, they have to do a suitability standard, so they do
Uh-huh.
what's suitable. But
Mhm.
it can also, it's not a fiduciary standard, and the
Mm.
difference there is it can be suitable. Um, but on the fiduciary side, they don't necessarily have to be your advocate. So it
Ah,
can be
okay.
right for you, but they don't have to go advocate for better pricing or better,
Okay.
a better widget or a better what's it that's going
Mm,
into your program. Where
yeah.
on the fiduciary standard, our obligation is set higher, where we have to walk alongside of our client. We disclose fees, we
Mm,
disclose structure, we disclose
mhm.
where everything is, how it is. Not only does it have to be suitable, it has to be right for your plan. We have to have justification for why that program, vehicle, everything that we're touching is inside of your plan, and have that extra level of justification.
Yeah.
And also know that if something's it doesn't have to be the cheapest thing on there, right?
Sure.
But it has to be the right thing
The
for
right.
you and what you've identified out as your goals. So it's a higher obligation to meet. And we've been that way for, but I tell folks we've been doing that since before it was cool, since before they put
Right.
since before they started putting it in ads.
Yeah, right.
We didn't even know you could advertise it. We just thought that's what you were supposed to do. But evidently it's a marketing tool.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, it is. I think it's great to know that that differentiation, because I know that oftentimes we get, for lack of a better word, pitched by a financial advisor or what have you. And I think it's really important to know that standard, because that standard really means that you're in my corner and you're fighting for me. And it's not that you're just trying to sell me something, that is a mutual fund or what have you, if it's not right for me. So I thought that was, I think that's a great, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No,
I think that's the only reason why I've seen any success is because I'm probably our worst salesman. There's I've talked about this. I've talked about it from several spots. I struggle with the whole sales process. I don't like to be sold.
Sure.
It drives me nuts. I'm fine buying if I see value in it. So what we work towards is making sure that everybody's got 2 or 3 options. Here's 2 or 3 different ways to skin that cat. Here's multiple options. Here's what they cost. Here's how it works. You choose the one that's best for you. And that really puts me on the side of the client, really puts me on. I can really be their advocate, because we can bring different companies in. We're an IMO, or we have all the alphabet soup of terminology. So we have all the mutual funds, all the investments. We don't have to go. None of that matters to us, as long as it's right for you.
Got it. Yeah. I'm kind of curious. You alluded to it a minute or two ago when we were talking about your dad, but your basic tenets, the 5 F's: faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. Where did those come from, and why are they so important to you guys?
Yeah, so my father and Bob Wagner, and then one of our other founders, Joel Swinehart, who's retired now, but back in the 80s, they started the 5 F's, and we kind of digressed away from that for a little while and used core beliefs. And what we realized were those basic tenets. If we were truly to be servants, and we were truly to serve our clients and the advisors that work within our group, we really needed to get back to those tenets. And it was faith. The religious faith is a personal choice, but you have to have faith in the people that you work with. You and I've talked, we're a largely Christian firm.
Sure.
But we're not going to force feed that on folks. We're believers. They just have to be okay with it being on our letterhead or being on our emails. And as long as that's there, then that's good.
Sure.
Family, my wife told me I was a better person when I owned my own business than when I worked corporate. And then I get to work with my father, my best friend. So it really made sense to do that. Finance, obviously, we believe you have to be financially strong. You have to affiliate with financial firms that are strong. So, that's where we talk about our size. And, our organization, we manage a little over $2 billion in advisory and brokerage accounts. We have 50 some odd advisors in our group. We're in multiple states, and that's important to us. Fitness. So I'm a little light on physically fit, but I'm working on it. Our mentor, Paul, is working with me, right?
Is he getting on you?
Yeah. They're on my case, man. So I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better physically. Mentally, we try to stay pretty accurate. I'm trying to stay on board there. But we do like to have fun. It should be a drag. You're talking to folks with their financial stuff. It's already tense enough. The leading causes of divorce are infidelity and divorce and finance. And so folks are really tense when you start talking about budget. How much did you spend on X? Woo. So you got to make it fun. It's got to be an enjoyable conversation, because some of the subjects aren't. Right. So we have to like each other, and that's important.
Yeah. Well, and I know you work with a lot of high net worth individuals, and I know you've even got a private client group. And I'd love to just maybe have you share with the audience some of those common themes that you see in those individuals, maybe from like their habits, their mindsets, and things that have gotten them to that place. Because I think that so often the leaders that I work with, they aspire to gain wealth. They aspire to grow even in their leadership and their mindset. So I'm kind of curious if you've seen any like common themes as you've worked with them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the culture expert, right? So, I mean, you really work to help folks understand their culture and how to drive that home, to build into great leaders, and which is phenomenal for,
Mm.
work that you do. Um, what I see from the financial perspective, working with the high net worth and the private client folks on a regular basis, is the drive and focus
Mm.
are off the chart. You
Mm.
know, they not only set who, who their target market is. So now we get into a little bit of the marketing piece, right? But
Sure.
they set up who is their audience, whether they're selling a widget or whether
Mm.
they are providing a service. They know who who their target is.
Okay.
And then they are relentless
Hmm.
with the pursuit of that target and the drive and the focus with how are they going to do it. And then
Yeah.
they have that, I guess the right word is they have perseverance,
Yeah.
um, because especially young leaders, young businesses getting started, you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Just,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
there's nothing more humbling than starting a company and then going and asking somebody if they'll give you 10 minutes of their time to share with them what you're doing.
Right.
I mean, you just, no, don't
Yeah.
have time.
Sure.
No, I don't have time. And then you find out that the ones closest to you that you thought would be your biggest advocates aren't.
Mm.
And the ones that you thought would be, your biggest naysayers are 100% in your corner. And
Yeah.
I think those high net worth folks and my private clients, they have that relentless pursuit of
Mm.
their vision, and they have a
Yeah.
really well defined vision and mission and how they drive to go get it,
I
just on
love
a
it.
I mean daily. I mean
Yeah.
it's
These,
almost an obsession.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I think that, well, and you used another word too, focus. And I think that the thing that I see with high achievers, especially, is they know how to focus out everything that's not, in alignment with that vision. And I guess I'm asking, do you see that as well with your high net worth
Oh,
clients?
yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so much out there that pulls our attention, right? From our
Yeah.
phones to social media to people to everybody else's fire.
Yeah.
And what I really see in their focus is the ability to understand that their fire might not necessarily be, someone else's fire might not necessarily be their fire, and that's
Sure.
okay
Yeah.
if if they're not able to solve that person's problem because it's outside of their purview, it's outside of that.
Mhm.
They're focused on their mission.
Yeah.
um, I think you use a word in one of your trainings, that's being very, and I love it because it just resonates with me, is being very intentional with what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
They are very intentional with how they do it. It wasn't by, there are some that happen by luck, right, or
Sure.
just by right place, right time. But for the vast majority, that's a one percenter, right? For the
Mhm.
vast majority, it's very intentional
Mm.
focus on that outcome. And I love that, that's one of your big tenets is, how intentional are you in what you do?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you really see that resonates through with these folks.
And do you see too that they just know how to say no to things, better than others? I mean, to me, I would think that you have to, especially at that level, you're going to have all kinds of opportunities coming at you, and then I guess you're going to have to get good at just saying no.
That screening process at that level is pretty intense. I mean,
Yeah.
just to get into a meeting with that that person,
Yeah.
takes a referral in, or takes somebody that is already connected to allow access.
Yeah.
And so not only, not only from that perspective, but you think about it at that level, everybody's needs a donation.
Right.
Every charity needs something. Every
Yeah.
person needs a job. All of those things come in, and they can't do everything. So there's a heavy filter to say no. Now, that comes with having good people too. Most of them hire a handful of really good people that can help outsource or deflect some of those things before they even come in. Those gatekeepers are important.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What do you see as, if you look at their, their mindset and habits, and you apply it to, some of our younger listeners. I know I work with a lot of emerging leaders, although those, I don't define those as always young, because there are emerging leaders who maybe this for the first time they're being a people leader, and getting maybe a promotion. However, I know there are younger listeners to the podcast, and I'd love to just kind of hear, like, what are some of the things that either you see in those private clients, or maybe even, just from your own experience, that younger listeners need to be thinking about in their quest for growth, for their finances, and really thinking about that aspect of maybe it's retirement too.
David, you're going to get me on a soapbox. We could be here for 2 hours.
That's
brother.
Great. I know. I'm setting it up for you. Here's your.
You're going to get me on a soapbox here. It's going to be bad. So I'm going to temper it a little bit. But you did give me some time constraints. No. With the young leaders coming out, and people, young entrepreneurs, or even, and not by age, but just by experience coming out, in working on their own, many people believe that it's an 8 to 5 gig. And I think first they have to get in their mindset, especially starting out. They look at successful folks, or they look at like some of my clients, and they're only working 3 days a week, or they're only working 4 days a week. But what you didn't see were the 3 years that they work 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, and leverage their house 3 times to make that work. You didn't see that. You're seeing the end result of that work. And I think that's one, that you're working for yourself. So you've got to wake up every day hungry. And you've got to wake up, no matter what's in the bank, you've got to wake up ready to go, because you represent, when you own that, you have to understand that you embody that every single day, not just Monday through Friday. It's not like you're representing some company that you can turn off on the weekend. I mean, when you go to that ball game, you're whatever your company is.
That's right.
When you go, you represent you each and every day. And if you're not embodying that, and there's stress around that, because some days they want to have that relief. Those young folks have to understand that drive has to be there. You have to kind of follow some tenets on finance, because you get those big hits, and you want to spend it all, but they forget to put back, to have some hold back. They forget to pay their taxes, because now, you still have to withhold taxes. So they don't have money held back. They didn't put money back for their taxes. And now they've spent it all, and they get out to the end of the year, and they end up having to go into debt or something worse to try to get that paid. So we work through a process with those younger folks of, hey, take a percentage and put it back for taxes. Take a percentage and put it back for hold back, so you can operate the next month. And then take this percentage and live on that.
That's great.
One of the things on the financial side that we work with the young groups on is making sure that they understand that the engine is their business. They have to focus on the business. And if you take all the fuel out of your business, which in a lot of times it's capital and resources, you've taken the air. You're not gonna, that engine's gonna stall. So you have to keep feeding it, especially, and when you're running, you've got to run. I mean, you know this. I mean, when you're seeing that ball spinning and you've been pushing it up that hill, and now it starts to go downhill, people want to go into a shade tree.
No.
And that's the time where you've got to just follow it down. You just run, 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 run.
Yeah.
And I think those are huge things that folks have to be mindful of when they're getting their business going.
Yeah. Yeah. What about even just preparing for, for retirement? Like how important is, I've talked to a lot of younger people, and I think I wish I was as smart as some of the younger people that I've talked to recently than I was, because I mean, some of the younger people right now are really getting started putting money away in their Roth IRA. They're really doing some things like that, which I think is so important. And I guess, if you were to, talk to that younger person, how important is it, to take advantage of, that compounding effect from youth?
Well, I mean, the time value of money is so important. I mean, what a 20-year-old can put back, I mean, some perspective around that, a 20-year-old could put $50 to $100 back that would cost me, $500 or $600 a month to just emulate what they're putting back. And they wouldn't even notice it in their current budget. I mean, the time value of money, they need to understand the rule of 72. Interest divided into 72 tells you how long it should take those funds to double. So if you're earning 6%, it goes into 72 12 times, and every 12 years that money should be doubling. And that's that power of compounding. So if they're young and getting into that, it makes their life a lot easier than when you're in your 40s and 50s trying to figure that out. Because now the dollar amount is, almost 10 times what you're having to do in your 20s to try to match that same retirement goal, just trying to keep apples to apples. So anything from tax deferred growth, like the Roth, like you mentioned, is a great opportunity because they're going to get the tax deferral. They're going to have that long-term growth. If they need the deductions, they can always do traditional IRAs or 401ks or anything like that. But being mindful of kind of three phases. They want to stay liquid, so you need to have enough money in a liquid account that you can access. Then you need to look at tax deferral. Do I need tax deductions today or tax deferral? Because you want to think about accumulation in your income plan as well. So those two phases, accumulation and income. And then on the income, how am I pulling that money out? Is it going to be taxable when I retire? Is it going to be tax-free when I retire? Or is it going to be at capital gains? And then balancing those. And if you do that effectively and you start that process, the younger you start that process, the easier it is. I didn't say it was going to be easy. I just said it was easier than waiting 20, 30 years to do that, because I have time. And before you know it, you don't have time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, if I'm going to switch gears on you, so kind of the other end of the spectrum, because another group of people I know that do listen to the podcast are business owners and founders who maybe on the other end of the spectrum, who are maybe transitioning out of their company, or transitioning to the next level of leaders, the next generation of leaders in their company. What are some things that you feel are really important for them to think about as they make that transition?
Yeah, continuity planning and succession planning are very important, and understanding how to rebalance, because chances are when we're at that stage of life, we've got assets and we're in a position where we need to understand how our overall assets are laid out personally, but also if we own the business, how are we truly going to pass that business on to somebody? Are we going to sell it? Are we going to do an earn out? How do we want to structure that benefits or complements rather our retirement plan, or they call it exit planning, continuity planning, succession planning. I think the older we get into business, it should happen when we're younger, but we don't really think about it until we have kids, and and we're on the other end of that. We're on the other end of that curve, or we're at the top of that hill. Then we start thinking about, wow, what happens if I die? Who's going to take care of all of those things? You want to have all of that blocking and tackling taken care of. And if you're on that other end, then it's, how do I get my assets aligned correctly? How do I build my succession plan with with taxes, with risk management, with future income all planned out, so that one, that transition is smooth, and two, what am I going to do next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are my next steps?
That's good.
Because we see that in retirees or very successful people like that you deal with.
Mm-hmm.
They retire and then they don't know what's next.
Yeah. Right.
And because they're high achievers, very successful, we need to be contemplating that what's next. And if they're with the right group, right financial people, the right coaches like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have those conversations with them. We're going to have those conversations with them. Okay, so if this, then what?
Right.
Well, I mean, you can only plant so many flowers in the garden.
That's right.
What's that next for you? And if that is your next and that's what you want, then by all means, there's nothing wrong with it, but understand it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pride and ego too. So one thing that I counsel our folks on is if you're transitioning that, you have to allow that successor to fail a little bit.
Yeah,
they have to taste a couple of those decisions that just bite.
Right.
Don't let them sink the ship, but let them make they need to make a decision that might not work.
Right.
But let them make it and let it bite a little bit, and then they won't make that again, and then you can have a good conversation about it.
Yeah.
And then that'll help them learn and grow, but it'll also force you to kind of remove yourself from always being pulled back in.
Yeah.
Never truly being able to let go of that stress.
Well, that's such great advice. I know that it's so hard when you've been the founder of the organization. You've built everything to the place where it is, and then you release the reins, so to speak, and you let the next level leader or the next generation leader make some decisions that just is probably not going to go so well. But I guess the frame of mind, as you just said, is use it as a teaching moment, as a learning moment for them, so that you can help give them confidence and really build.
Because we're all going to make mistakes, right?
Of course,
as leaders, we're all going to make those.
Yeah.
But if they're never allowed to make that because you're protecting each one of those, then they will never really learn how to make some of those really tough decisions on their own.
Yeah.
Because there's a mental thought process of going through what are the risks of my decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't always get the opportunity to make a decision with all of the data.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have to understand how to infer, how to take what you're hearing and run it through your own filter.
Yeah.
So you get that internal feeling. Is that a goosebump? What's that inside telling you?
Yes.
What's that gut feeling?
Instinct,
the old Jack Welch philosophy. What's what's in your gut? What's it telling you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Reagan, how do you grow your business? What's what's your secret sauce? I guess, as you think about building and growing, the National Financial Alliance and your team, even, you have some kind of secret sauce that you you use to grow.
I'm very fortunate in that most of our growth is surrounded with good people. I think the number one thing that you can do as a leader is surround yourself with people smarter than you. And I've been very fortunate in that I have some great folks that work with me. I have, my father still works with us some, and he works 4 or 5 days a week, and runs our insurance side still. So then we have Kristen, who's been my business partner for 17 years. So she's been here a long time. Those folks, and then the staff that we hire and bring in, that's really critical for our success. I stay at a state of constant unhappiness with my own personal performance. So I try to not allow myself. Now that's a blessing and a curse, right?
Sure.
And you know, from some of the studies that we've masterminds and things like that. So, I do the masterminds, On my business coach is Paul Martinelli with the EL.
Yep.
So, I mean, I get this all the time is, hey, you got to enjoy some of that too.
Right.
And I'm not discounting that, but I think what I continue to work on is I have to look at me first, because if something's not going right, it starts here.
Yeah.
It's not a blame game. It's not why didn't so and so do that. It's what could I have done as a leader to have prevented that from happening. So I stay pretty constantly dissatisfied with my own performance, regardless of the outside, regardless of what that projects. And I think from a leadership standpoint, for me, it's understanding when to push and when to pull, and trying to find that right balance. Many years I just sat back, and that's actually how I met Paul and got in with John Maxwell's group and Empowered Living, and got to meet you. Was through that, was through needing to develop more as a leader that was out front, because most of mine was showing what we could do. I was a technician. So technically sound. That's why I got in the high net worth. I was really good at saving money and building and doing those types of things. But my advisory board was like, hey, we need you out in front sometimes. And so I needed the help. So it's constantly learning is really important. I get to meet folks like you who are very successful, and I take those nuggets. Those nuggets that y'all teach, and I try to implement. I don't try to implement 50 things. I try to take one thing and implement that. I try, and then even like the book studies that we did with Think and Grow Rich, and as a man thinking, what's one or two things that I could take from there and actually do. Because by nature we're lazy, right?
Exactly. I get, well, and I think that's the power of having other people around us. And I guess maybe for my last question, I'll just kind of throw this out there to you. You mentioned, the mastermind and the power of the mastermind. What has that meant for you? And maybe why did you actually join a mastermind to begin with?
Really it's that relentless pursuit of trying to be better. And for me, it's surrounding myself with people that have been there and done that, and have that same goal. I'm not necessarily looking for a safe space. I'm not necessarily looking for, how many clients can we generate from this mastermind. That's not really it's not what I was seeking. What I'm seeking is folks that really can speak into what's going on in their businesses and their world, and then I can internalize that and see how that impact how I can use that learning, that experience, because it's really hard. It's really hard for someone to teach us how to do it if they've never done it.
Right.
And
right.
You've built a very successful business. Paul's built a very successful business. When you build those, then it's a lot easier to say, hey, you know what? Here are the three roadblocks that I ran into when I did X. Okay, that's going to have a different take than somebody who has never done anything but just read E-Myth and is telling me how to do what Gerber told him to do.
Right.
I read the book. I got it. I got the book
that.
study. Thanks. Check that one off too. I knew what he said too.
Right.
I want to know practically how we did it.
How we implement it.
And I think from the mastermind standpoint, that's really what I get out of those, is being able to sit in those groups. And as we talk through those different issues of just life and business and the culmination of the two, it really helps bring out those nuggets of, that's how we could do that differently. Oh, you know what? I could change how I say these three things, and this has this much more impact on my employees and my team. If I just did this, if I just put a logo up behind me, that would be better.
That would be better. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? If I just did X, but see, all of this comes from those masterminds where it's just one or two nuggets, but they've been a value. I've been part of different ones for about 10 years, but the ones that we've been doing with started with JMT and then went to Paul's, the Empowered Living. those for us have been really good, and for me. And we've had some of the folks speak. You and I've talked. I mean,
Yeah.
there's things that we can do that together with like-minded individuals that are really, really awesome, because
Yeah.
we can just learn from each other
Yeah.
and grow together. And that's what makes it fun. I
It
mean,
does.
no one's looking to gin a ticket. No one's looking to make a sale.
Right.
How do we help one another become the
Exactly.
best people we can be? And now that's exciting. That's something I can get my arms around.
Yeah, me too, Reagan. Well, Reagan, I got to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you coming on and just sharing your wisdom, sharing about your organization and just your growth journey, because I know it's going to add a lot of value to our listeners. And I'm grateful just to be able to have the conversation and really hear, the growth path that you've been on, because I always like learning myself, and I love the mastermind. And I guess let me just ask you one last question. I feel like I'm Columbo. Just one more thing.
One more thing.
One more thing. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to share that you'd like to with the listeners, just to kind of put a bow on our conversation?
For us, it's about service. And I think once we got our arms around and really dove into our big tenets, and we realized that through our faith, Christ served us, and he died on a cross for us. For me, and not everybody believes that, and that's their own prerogative, but that's where we line up.
Yeah.
We had to get out of our own arrogance and ego to understand that we are here to serve others. And it took me a while to learn that in this business. I was so busy telling people what to do, I was not truly listening to what they wanted to do and needed to do. And it took getting deeper into our faith side and really understanding our tenets and our personal beliefs, that we are here to serve, and we are truly servant leaders in what we do. And when I made that choice for me personally, it not only helped our company grow, it helped our family, it helped so many other things, that just getting our number one focus right, it helped build our organization. So if I have to leave that, whatever that is for them and your audience, for us, it was service. How do we truly serve? That was the single most important thing we did, was get back to our beliefs of Christ and following and serving and truly being a servant leader for our clients, advisors, and our team.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Reagan. I appreciate you being on today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. God bless you. I'm so excited for what you have going on. And I wish all of your listeners well. And if there's anything we can do to serve you, we will.
Thank you. Well, I really loved this episode, and I always like to recap some key points of our conversation here at the end. And as we move into the new year, I really enjoyed hearing what Reagan shared about the common themes and habits of high net worth individuals, the ones that he works with anyways. And I heard him say that some of the common themes of high net worth individuals are just an intense drive and focus. They're super focused. And I think that in this world of distractions, we have to learn to harness our focus. And so if we can do that into the new year, we are going to just be able to excel at a whole different level. They not only have an intense drive and focus, but they're relentless in their pursuit of their vision. So not only do they have a clear vision, but they're relentless in that pursuit. And I love that, because so oftentimes when we get a roadblock put in front of us, we can tend to stop, or we can just get sidetracked. And so being relentless in the pursuit of our vision is such a key component of growth. Not only that, but they persevere, because just because they're relentlessly pursuing their vision, it doesn't mean that they're going to get it right away. They're going to have roadblocks. They're going to have hurdles. And so they have to persevere. They have to be persistent. So being hyper-focused, being very intentional, being very clear at their vision, and then pursuing it and being perseverant is so important. The other thing that I really heard from Reagan in this conversation too was some habits. There were some habits of high net worth individual people. And the one thing that I heard was just an intense hunger for success, not being satisfied for where we are right now, but being willing to put ourselves outside of our comfort zone and having that hunger and desire to learn and to grow and to keep reaching for excellence. I love that. The other thing he said, and this is really something I think that I know that I will be working on in the new year, and that is being financially disciplined. I think that the high net worth individual people that he works with are very financially disciplined. They not only just feed their business cash, but they also accelerate when momentum hits. So when they get the momentum, when they get the law of momentum, as John Maxwell calls it, they accelerate. They hit the accelerator, and they really know how to push forward when they get that momentum. They also understand the time value of money. And I think if you're a younger leader listening right now, I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure that you are putting money aside in your retirement accounts. Put money aside for that quote unquote rainy day fund. Make sure that you are putting money away and saving it and taking advantage of the power of compounding. Now, if you're a senior leader, the other thing that I heard Reagan talk about was just the value of transition planning and succession planning. And you've heard this theme before here on the podcast. I know that we had another episode with Denise Logan. And I'm not recalling right now the episode number, but Denise Logan talked about exit planning and how to plan for your exit. And thinking about it ahead of time, because when we think about something ahead of time, then it's not a surprise, and it's really not just aligning our assets and our financial planning, but it's also about what am I going to do next, and I need to answer that question. You heard that from Denise as well, and not only that, but you have to prepare your next generation of leaders. You have to be able to help them to learn and grow themselves and frankly, allow them to make some mistakes as well. And I can say, what better way to begin that journey than to join us at our Inner Circle Summit on December 13th. And you're going to have an opportunity there to experience firsthand some emerging leaders who are part of the Emerging Leader Inner Circle, and also some senior leaders who are investing in their succession planning. So if we do have seats left to the summit, you'll be able to get one at davidmcglennon.com/Inner Circle Summit 2022. And don't worry if you're driving or if you're on the treadmill or working out, we'll put that in the show notes. So just go to the show notes and we'll have that link there. But when you go there, be sure to plug in the coupon code podcast, the word podcast in all capital letters. Put that in the coupon box and you'll get our podcast pricing. Now, if you like this episode too, please do me a quick favor and scroll to the ratings part of your podcast app. On Apple, it's clear at the bottom. Just give us a 5-star review and share with us something that you really enjoyed about this episode, about the podcast, maybe something that impressed you the most from today's episode. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And I'd really also love to be in touch with you in a more personal way. So every week I write an email to my community, and I encourage our leaders and really help focus our growth each week on different topics. And in the show notes, you're going to see my website. It's simply davidmcglennon.com. And when you scroll to the bottom of my website, you can just join our email community. It's free, and I'd love to have you be a part of that. So thanks so much for joining us today. And until next time, keep growing and be well.